There is a belief among those who believe in magic that one must speak a spell 3 times in order for it to become binding and true. It took being called a misogynist a lot more than 3 times to become true, more like 300 plus, but in time it did become true. I began to see women as vicious creatures whose only agenda when it came to me or any man was to see how much they could get from the man. Then, when he had nothing left to give because they had taken it all, toss him out like yesterday's garbage. In short, as nothing but users. Feminist author Wendy Dennis came out with a book in the early 1990s called Hot and Bothered, Sex and Love in the 90s. Among many other astute observations in the book was that nothing was more classically typical of the state of male-female relations than the woman who complained bitterly about every aspect of men, then couldn't figure out why she couldn't get one of these awful creatures to fall madly in love with her. I had observed the same thing so many times that I had simply concluded that such women were simply not very bright. In stark contrast to the mythology of how socially adept women are, I was baffled that such women were so stupid that they didn't realise that no living thing will respond to such projections of distaste, contempt and hatred with anything except return animosity. I took to avoiding women, particularly groups of them, because I could never sit quietly and put up with the bashing and would always challenge it, which ended up in a lot of fights and added greatly to the count of the number of times I got called misogynist. I noticed that women seemed to do it habitually, without thinking, and would confront my female friends over and over until they learned not to do it in my presence. And after 3 decades of listening to it and hating it, and trying to keep the animosity which had been building in me over it, when the husband of a woman friend of mine, who had been very dishonest about her motivations for our friendship, and had been trying to harass me into turning our friendship sexual, threatened to kill me, and she said, "I don't know why you're making such a big deal about it," I caved in and really began to hate women. Most of the time this hatred lies dormant. I figure that the best thing I can do for myself, and for women, is to keep the contact I must have with them to a minimum, and to keep as much distance between them and myself as possible. It is rather like hanging a sign on the fence that says, "Beware of a very bad dog. Stay outside the fence and everything is fine, but come through the gate at your own risk. Leave me the hell alone, and I will leave you alone." Misogynists are not born, they are made. I'm still baffled at all the women who seem to expect men to live on a steady diet of hatred and man-bashing, and somehow magically metabolize this toxic diet into love for women, and a desire to see good things come to them. When I work real hard, I can make the anger cold, and take no joy when bad things happen to women. Simply regard it with indifference. When I hear a woman whine about being victimized, I simply tune her out and go somewhere else. When a woman smiles at me, I think of the old ethnic bashing joke. What does a blank say instead of fuck you? Answer: trust me. I will not allow most women in my house unless I've known her for a long time and she is old enough to have escaped being infected with the plague of man-hating or is escorted by someone I trust. Nor will I enter theirs except on the same conditions. If I pass a woman stranded on the road, I will not stop to help her because it is likely as not that she will be afraid of me. That's fine. She's a fish without a bicycle. I have no place in her world, nor her in mine. Man-bashing and man-hating harms women because it makes men hate them back, eventually. A puppy returns love for love, but if you beat it, it will eventually turn mean and will one day turn on you when you raise your fist, or stick, or the club of words to hit it. Men are no different. When women talk about treating men like dogs, I wish they would. It would be an improvement. Most women treat their dogs far better than they treat their men. Somewhere along the line, I went through a metamorphosis. I changed from a man who loved women and thought they were just about the greatest thing in the world to a man who can't stand them or anything about them. I'm sick and tired of the lies that women tell about men. I'm sick and tired of their victim games. I'm sick and tired of the hatred and bashing I have to put up with when I'm around them. I'm sick and tired of the arrogant contempt in which they seem to hold me and all other men. I'm sick to death of the way that some of them feel the need to seek me out to piss me off. A couple of years back, at a funeral of my uncle, as a fine a man as I have ever known, some woman felt the need to start a conversation with me as I sat with my private grief. She wanted me to agree with her that men don't ask for directions. How could anyone be so stupid and socially incompetent? When men came up to me to talk, it was always something like, "Your uncle was a fine man," not, aren't men headstrong and stupid? Invariably, when I tell a woman about all of this, she tries to argue with me and say something like, get over it, or why don't you take the gender out of it? In return, I ask, why the hell don't you women get over it and take the gender out of it? I would like nothing better than to be left in peace and allow women to enjoy the absence of my company, which they find so annoying and unpleasant. Every day, a few more men got through the transformation and became like me. We don't get our guns and shoot a few women. We don't beat them up, because what women have been saying about us all these years is just flat wrong. But there's no point in trying to tell women that because they have become so certain of their superiority, that the best way to deal with them is to leave them to it, and the company of their other fishy friends.